James is having Power Bowl again, and potatoes, and those Power Bowl servings are not that big.
No.
But
That's okay.
That's okay. And I'll talk about Silent Night, which got top of the stack against Bread and Bones and the postcard killing. And I'll talk about these books, so about corn snakes, rats, pigs, fish, and then that's what I've gotten done on that painting so far. I did a little more today. I haven't been doing very much because I've been working on poetry, so I don't know exactly how much else I'll get done besides the poetry stuff, but because I've been putting a lot of work into the poetry in the park. So our first one.
Get you to put this on the paint cans, maybe.
I'll just put it over here.
Oh, you got room.
The
I didn't know.
poetry in the park things are starting. It looks like we might actually be able to do it. It looks like the weather is coming back to good for Sunday, and so we might actually get to do the guided poetry in the park hike on haikus, which will start this Sunday. So hope we'll see you there. And I guess if the weather isn't that great, then maybe we won't see a lot of people, but who knows? It might be really great. So I'm going to try to stay optimistic. And this one, I've been writing poems as examples for the various poetry forms. And I wrote a whole bunch yesterday. I wrote almost all the I filled almost all the poetry forms that we will be teaching over the next 3 months in almost all of them in one day. So this isn't really, it shouldn't be that challenging. Once you get the get a sense of rhythm and stuff like that, then it gets easier. So we start out slowly, and these are our first 13 lessons of 100 in a book that we wrote that we haven't gotten published yet because I'm still revising it. But as I keep working on other things, I keep taking more other things on, and then I have less time for like this. You know, this would be easy to get done in a day, very easy. But I'm doing so many other things that I don't have time to. I would have to cancel all the other things out to finish that in a day, and that can wait. You know, it's not that important, right? That's what I do in the winter months, but I'm going to have a few days of snow coming up, so maybe I'll get it done in the next few days. So here is my poem, Hiking Now, which I wrote yesterday, April 2nd, 2024. Spring's finally here. The trails are clear, so let's go hiking now. Let's do just what my flabby gut and yours here will allow. I know you'd like to take a hike in Waterton in May, but April's great here. Let's not wait. Let's hit some trails today. We'll take things slow at first, then go a little faster. Then, in little time, we'll start to climb up coulee slopes again. We soon will be in shape, so we will really have some fun on opening day around mid-May when we're in Waterton. So that one is a 14er part 4. So it's we get a little more complicated, a little more demanding each time. And
it's a special type of 14er. Ordinarily, it's not called a 14er. It does have, it's in iambic.
Well, yeah, James says it's called Ballad meter.
Ballad meter.
Yeah.
So it's kind of like what was used by, I think, in the Rhyme of the Ancient Mariner by.
In a 14er, you just rhyme at the end, like da 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 da, 14, and then you have the rhyme at the end of the 14. But James cut it up for me so that to make it more challenging. So the 14er, you cut the rhyme, you know,
in different places.
In different places. And first, well, you'll see. You'll see if you show up. So.
So as it turns out, cut it on this exercise in a place where it's traditionally been cut up. Although, like I say, it's not called a 14er, strictly speaking. I call it a 14er because it's got 14 syllables in it. Yes, I am.
Yeah. So anyway, we'll be hiking what we call the Great Circle, which starts at Red Rock Canyon and finishes at Red Rock Canyon in Waterton on June 30th, starting at 8 a.m. And
so it's not
we will
that high.
teach this
I'm
form
not
at that time.
expecting snow at any of the heights there, but there might be a stretch there, in which case we'll just, it's kind of halfway there. We'll just come back the way we went if it's snowing.
All right, so I'm going to start off with this. This is Silent Night, and it's from the producer of John Wick. And you see the guy holding a gun, so you think, okay, well, Christmas action adventure movie. Well, this was actually pretty interesting. I didn't expect it to be, but of course I was going to watch it, But if you're wondering, can they do a movie where there's no dialogue, where it's pretty much a silent movie, and yet still be an action adventure film? Well, yes, they can. Check it out. It's good. There's a lot of violence, so this is not a family movie, but unless your family's all adult and likes to watch a lot of action adventure sort of violence. I mean, same sort of, if you're into watching John Wick, you'll be into that. Bread and the Bones, the poetry, pleasures, and politics of bread. So this one is 72 minutes long, it says, and I forgot to bring out, I've made some notes, but I forgot to bring them, and it doesn't really matter. They mentioned a few things. They mentioned that the word for art comes from the word for, like, bread maker. And I don't remember what language that was or whatever, but I guess that's where it comes from.
Well, art, I'm pretty sure ars is, and I'm not, for you English folks, I'm not using the cognative German harsh.
And Bethlehem apparently means something to do with bread. I can't remember exactly what, because my notes are inside.
It means house of bread.
Okay, there we go. That's
so
what it means.
Beth or Bet means house, and Lehem means bread, I guess.
Yeah.
If it was Lahem, I think it would mean meat, but yeah.
And what else did they say? Oh, pumpernickel. That means the devil's fart. So that one's not a great name.
Nickel
for a
would
nice
be short for devil,
word.
and then pump. I haven't run across that in German. It kind of makes sense. Oftentimes, a word for fart is like what is it, pate or something like that. In French, it might have a F or a P at the beginning. So in English, of course, it's and in German, it's Furze, right? That's another word, the main word for fart. You can see it's related to fart.
And well, the poetry of bread in this film was prose. It wasn't poetry. It's not what we will be teaching on our poetry in the park things.
I understand. I'm not going to tell you not to write that kind of stuff.
No.
I'm going to tell you it's maybe not really sensible to call it poetry.
No. And I mean, as enjoyable as it is to listen to, whatever.
It can be. It's
free
not
verse
nearly
can be great to listen to, but
yeah. On average, it's not nearly as artsy. If you really pump up the metaphor, simile, and other rhetorical schemes and schemas and stuff like that, you can make it so that it's impressive. But if you're writing something like William Carlos Williams, I mean, it's basically prosy and sort of stuff, so it could have been cut out of a novel, but a novel could be 1,000 pages long. So
the poetry of bread, I don't think it was really there. I mean, they could say the art of bread, because I mean, poetry, including free verse, is an art, right? It's a form of art. Writing is anyway. So that would have been better, but I think they just wanted the piece: poetry, pleasures, and politics. But
they got into the politics of bread.
they did. It was too political. Honestly, they didn't get into it enough. And they got into it in a way that I didn't like. So,
okay.
I mean, it's called Bread in the Bones, and they're saying, well, we've been eating bread. So many cultures, well, they're saying like everyone, but not everyone.
Not everyone.
And so not everyone has been eating bread as a part of their culture, and certainly not everyone has been eating leavened bread as in their culture.
Most places they have unleavened bread.
Yeah.
Where they got bread.
So they talk about leavened bread here, not unleavened bread. leavened bread,
Yeah.
because they're talking about yeast, and they're talking about how bread is, you put the yeast in, you mix it with these ingredients, and then the yeast sacrifices its life so that you can eat the bread, right? So that the bread can be made. So, but that's only in leavened bread. And there's a lot of cultures out there that don't even eat bread at all. So
Well, I mean, originally every culture wouldn't have eaten bread. I mean, they would have been gathering. I don't know if they would have even gathered seeds.
And it really starts out with this guy. He's wearing an eye patch there, and he has this puppet festival with bread. And he said, he's a farmer, and he had signs up saying free bread, and nobody would come. And then he had signs up, when there was some sort of a recession, even more free bread or something like that. Nobody came. And so he started the puppet show thing just to get people in so that he could give them free bread, because he wanted to, the way he thinks of it is, you wouldn't charge your mother or your brother for bread. So why would you look at everyone else any differently than you would your mother and brother? Give them free bread. And so he's really into that. But at the same time, if you think about it, well, you wouldn't charge your mother or brother for anything, would you? I mean, I don't know, maybe some would. Maybe some would charge for bread, I don't know. But
there are some kids that aren't deserving of their parents. I wonder why I would say that. But at any rate,
anyway, I came from a good family, so I don't know. I love my mom and my dad and my sister and whatever. But not everybody out there is like my mom, my dad, and my sister. And many of them, honestly, they don't deserve me to slave for them, making bread to give it to them. And at the same time, I'm very thankful for people who are giving me stuff. We got, like I said, this power bowl from the food truck, and the blueberries and cake from the Salvation Army. So we are given things to eat, and we're very thankful for it.
Now understand,
and we give the poetry in the park. This is something we can do for free. So if you want to come and learn poetry from us, actual poetry, then please do come for free. If you want to learn how to identify a bunch of native Alberta flowers, come along. I'll be happy to teach you what I know, share what the work that I've put into learning, and help guide somebody else to do the same, because it's beautiful to love nature. But at the same time, in this video, they're talking about they get too political about things. They're talking about, oh, bread doesn't have borders, why do people have borders and stuff, and it's like, okay, this has nothing to do with bread, and that's taking it too far.
Like, you've got to have borders with Nazis. You've got to have borders with fascists. And I know this comes as news to people, but you got to have borders with commies. You got to have borders with belief systems that are based on violence.
And honestly, I can see where some people are thinking, like one religion in particular that I'm not fond of, but they don't believe that Jesus ever existed. Some of them don't believe that, and
well, if you're thinking about the religion, I think you're thinking that he's actually one of their prophets.
Well, some people believe that, and some people believe that he didn't actually exist at all.
Well, some people, but in that religion, it's right in their holy book.
Well, one religion, just a prophet. Other religions, not existing at all. So, and I can see how people might believe one or the other. But I like to think of Jesus as being real and being somebody that people might want to emulate. Because from he seems like a great guy, whatever. But I mean, looking at this, you're looking at it and going, okay, Bethlehem means house of bread, and he's like dividing the loaves, like they're getting into dividing the loaves up, sharing the bread and whatever, and then your mind's working away, going, oh, this, you know, this does sound like a fictional story or whatever, right? But yeah, what bread did is it made it so, well, grain, wheat in particular, it made it so that people had enough food, and they were able to settle down in a place. And
that's the important thing.
Yeah.
People had enough food. They had a high death rate, and they were very prone to famine.
Yeah.
If you're wandering around doing the pastoral, not the pastoral, but the nomad hunting and gathering thing, when you settle down and you got grain, you can save it for lean times and all that sort of stuff. You can start doing irrigation, so we can kind of spread out the watering season, all that sort of stuff. So that's, of course, the beginning of correlated with the beginning of the urbanization. Couldn't really call them cities, not even call them towns initially.
But yeah, I'm not a fan of religions that aren't pro Jesus. Honestly, I think that Jesus was is a good role model for people. But at the same time, more people means less nature. And there's been many in history. There's been many places in history where people have had to depended on some sort of innovation so that people wouldn't be killing each other to try to get enough food and enough resources, right? And every time some new innovation occurs, people just keep overpopulating.
Well, certain
more
types
and
of
more, and what do you do? How are you going to feed them? How are you going to? And what ends up suffering? Well, nature. The rest of the world suffers every time. So anyway, this is getting way too political for me to want to think about and talk about. And honestly, I had a problem with this DVD anyway, because they were talking about how immigrants, you know, the powers that be were trying to convince people that their bread was unclean and stuff like that. So don't buy in these little artisan bread shops and whatever, because... And then one guy, so they were making out like, oh, well, this was propaganda spread by the powers that be to shut the immigrants down and whatever. And they were talking about how hard it was to be a baker, a bread maker back then, because you had to work this dough all by hand and stuff like that. But anyway, and so then there were other people talking about how, yeah, everyone used to be able to handle the bread and sneeze all over it and whatever. It's like, okay, that doesn't sound particularly clean. And then there's other people talking about, it's just, you start wondering, okay, well, maybe it wasn't the powers that be trying to, bully immigrants into not setting up their bakeries or whatever. Maybe they really were unclean. Like
what
the
time
whole
frame was
title
he talking
called
about? Like
Bread in the Bones.
1900 or something?
I guess, I don't know. They didn't. I don't think they really mentioned dates. Bread in the Bones. So there wasn't enough information about actual bread and the history of bread. There was a lot of propaganda. Honestly.
That sounds very political and stuff.
So.
Like that.
Bread in the Bones, they didn't talk. It's funny because right in the title here, you'd expect that they would mention the fact that you used to have to worry about what made your bread. They'd grind up whatever to make flour. Not just, if you might think, oh, it's wheat. No, you don't necessarily know that, right? But luckily, the government has some sort of control over food, and I'm not always agreeing with what control they have over the food industry or whatever. But boy, is it ever good that we have some food industry standards and that somebody's watching out, or you'd end up with bones in your bread. That's what you'd end up with today. And you might yet. If the population keeps growing, what are you going to feed them? So, the postcard killings, bottom of the stack. I don't like this actor. He's not very good. But
Can't say that I've ever seen him, that I recall him.
well, I've seen him in quite a lot.
Okay.
He usually does a lot of made-for-TV sort of movies.
That explains
So
it.
he's it's based on a best-selling novel, I guess, and
Oh yeah, James Patterson's a huge. He actually wrote a novel in conjunction, if I'm not mistaken, with Bill Clinton. Yeah,
okay.
it's a pretty bad novel.
I don't know if I really liked the story even that much, but if you want to watch some story about, like, it's a detective drama about with there's some murders happening, and it gets a little personal and whatever right at the beginning. So I'm going to talk about these. These are some pet books, and I got these out while I was working on art, because not in this one, I didn't use it in this one, but I've been putting various pets in my art. Pets, types of pets that I've known over the years. And one was a friend had a corn snake, so I
Pretty
haven't
impressive.
put a picture out of that, but I've looked at the book and it's awesome. So if you want to know how to care for a corn snake, wow, that's comprehensive.
It looks like something I
Very
could care
good.
for.
Yeah.
They're not poisonous.
So
right?
no. So rats. I've talked about this one before. It's a kid's book, and it's awesome. You could learn a lot about how to care for your rat by reading this, and you could learn a little bit about how to care for pigs from Piggy Pigs. It's a little kid's book, and it's got a lot of pictures, and really pigs aren't that demanding. So this one got bottom of the stack, although it has a lot of pretty pictures of fish.
Very nice.
Yes, very nice. So this will be good for my artwork, making pretty pictures of fish, but there's not very much information about each one. So that's why I put this on the bottom.
It's
So-
complicated.
Yeah, it's like looking at a magazine of fish.
So fish, you have to worry about the water, whether it's salt water.
Yeah,
fresh
well, that's
water.
the thing here,
What
like,
do you feed them? How often?
yeah.
And you can have crashes. They can catch diseases. I'm not sure how.
So, well, you're not going to find out in here, but I mean, there's a lot of comparing. Like, this is reef fish, right? So this is saltwater stuff, which is really demanding anyway. And my ex used to keep saltwater aquariums, and well, he kept a lot of pets, but
He'd have
beautiful.
crashes, right?
And yeah, crashes. And I don't know if sea slugs are in here, but having seen his tanks crash,
It's sad.
sad. I mean, you lose everything. Everything goes when you have a crash. And it's one time it was a sea slug that did it. Boom, everything gone.
It spread stuff.
It's terrible. I don't know. They die, and I don't know. They release. I don't know what happens. I don't know. But the sea slug, that did it. And what was it another time? I can't remember. Anyway, I should have been making notes so then I could help people. But I'm not going to talk about anything anymore.
How much time's left? 5?
Yep. You're good at that. You always seem to know
Not
what
as
time.
good as our old dog. He learned a new
he's
trick.
great.
I used to play Mario, one of the Mario games,
Dr. Mario.
Dr. Mario. It didn't go on and on. It just went through a half an hour program of it getting tougher and tougher. It was right on the half an hour. At about, so Copper got hit by a cyclist in this alleyway here, and Copper had trouble with his back. After that, for the 3 or 4 years he survived. the experience. So he couldn't go downstairs anymore. So he'd stay at the top of the stairs. Now maybe he was responding to the sounds. Maybe they had different music, background sounds, or whatever. But he'd start whimpering at about 29 minutes into me going through the Super Mario. After a while, I didn't get any faster. I mean, I was around 50 years old or something like that. And, you know, I certainly didn't have the itchy trigger finger of a teenage boy. So, but he was like clockwork. It was incredible. It was just after 29 minutes, some animals seem to have a sense about time. My brother lives in an apartment. He used to have a cat called Scruff. That cat around 10:30 would start whining for its 11 o'clock walk. He has actually walked on a leash. He loved that leash. You wouldn't imagine a cat would love a leash. But, you know, it's in the middle of the GTA. Not exactly the middle, but pretty close to it. And Mississauga's just in the middle. And so it was very urban cat, very urban existence. That's the only walk he got, the only time he got to go outside. And like I say, 10:30 started getting a little bit antsy. He got antsier and antsier until the leash appeared. Anyway, I've been threatening or promising to talk a little bit about what happened. I'm revising it from 1853 BC to 1866 BC. Wow, I'm off by 13 years. I was looking at precession of the equinoxes, and they were saying that there was a change, at least I think there's a wiki article. Hopefully they got it right. You can find all sorts of wrong things, but wiki usually gets things right. I found some inaccuracies there, but at least one. But
a tornado took this, or not tornado, I keep calling him tornado. Elvis took this out of the garbage can so that he could put it right beside his food dish.
Saying what he wanted.
So cute.
That's
so
hilarious.
Cute.
Yeah. So we're looking at the so-called Sea of Passage. What happened there? Now, I don't have my translation of the Bible. I have many, many translations of the Bible in many, many different languages. I have many just in But, and I've copies of I have 2 copies of the Hebrew Old Testament, several copies of the Greek New Testament. So, but I don't have it with me. So I'm just going to introduce this, okay? So the vernal equinox, the Earth goes through something called the precession of the equinoxes. So where the vernal equinox and the other equinox occurs, change over something over a 26,000 years cycle.
That's so funny. They have Edmonton and Calgary on the
they're large things, and there's a lot of space, so you got to fill it in, right? There are large cities here in the eastern United States that might be, at least back then, have been as close or larger that might not be here. Mm-hmm. So, well, Providence made it. It's not that big.
Well, they have smaller places in Canada, so that
yeah, it's all scrunched up. There's 10 times as many people, right? Yeah. So the important ones made it in there. What's funnier is Prince Albert made it.
Yeah.
So Prince Albert at that point in time might have been 30,000 people. That's hilarious.